Good morning, and it's week 6 of 10 for Performing Arts Summer Camp, and I'm awake enough. Yeah. So anyway, just got on the freeway right now on the 405. Today is fortunately back to regular schedule. Heading Studio City first. Google Maps was very kind to remind me that the traffic is heavy and it's only getting worse. I appreciate its optimism. Yeah. So look, about an hour to get to Studio City. After that, heading to Pasadena and then looping all the way back around to Chatsworth Northridge and then back down again. Delivering a bunch of props because this is a show week. Yep, I have props behind me. I mean, I give people props. I try to give people props all the time. But on Monday, they come in boxes and I spread them out to 3 separate locations. And in some locations, I take pictures too. So that's the thing. I'm on the road just slightly behind schedule. I wouldn't say behind, but usually I'm on the road around 7 and just a few minutes after 7, and I had to stop and get some bagels because I'll tell you, it has been a very crazy few days, if not at least a week. And I'm going to start out with some somber news, and it really is depressing. So for many of you who have known me for years, many of you may know that I began my teaching career at LA Unified for 3 years, helping open a small learning academy or a small learning community high school in central LA. And so I found out yesterday that unfortunately one of my former students was killed in a shooting in the Bakersfield area. And it's just slowly getting out on the news. But I found out about this from alumni from the school that I was teaching at. And if you go on my Facebook page and check out the GoFundMe for that was put up by by my student's late partner. So if you could help her out, that'd be wonderful, or at least spread the word that it's there. If I recall, I think this student is the second one to die in the last since they all graduated in 2009. I left the same year they did, and it's just an unfortunate thing because it's way too soon, and it's just, you don't know what's going to happen to you, and you just do what you have to do, and it sucks. So it's there if you want to check that out. That's on the Facebook page, on my Facebook page, on my wall. And, please just at least share it to a few people. Anything helps. So, I will say this, though, is that, last few days have been a bit nutty. Last week has been a lot of just running all over the place. And you ever have one of those weeks where everything is just, you feel like you're just running want to get some time off, but the world's just not going to let you at the moment. That's pretty much the way that things went. And Monday through Thursday was a lot of driving, for the camp, and Friday was one of those random ones. I wasn't scheduled to work on Friday, but the new substitute service that I'm now signed up with gave me a message and said, hey, would you be interested in subbing for a class on Friday? And now I'm looking, and it's a summer school class, and it's in the middle of South Central LA, which is wonderful because knowing the schools in that area, I kind of knew what I was walking into. So I said, okay, fine, I'll do it. I need the money. Okay. So I get to the school, and it's somewhere off of like the 110 and Slauson. So if that tells you anything, it's probably less than 20 blocks from USC. Far less than, it's just down the street from USC. And so I go there, and it's a bunch of 9th graders, and I get my usual ounces of rudeness. I mean, I wouldn't blame them in some cases because kids these days, I'm used to getting bad mouth and cursed at because that's just what parents currently teach their kids to do, or either they teach them to do that or they don't control their kids so that they don't do that. So it's kind of like you get used to that part. But because it was the last day of summer camp, I'm actually of summer school for them. You know, they were at the point where like they just didn't really give like two craps about anything anymore. And the lesson plans that I received were very odd. It was basically, okay, the kids are going to take a survey on their this was a MacBook, it's an Air, MacBook Air school, so like 1-to-1, every student had a MacBook Air. And so it said, okay, the students are going to take a survey on Google Classroom, and then you're going to watch a movie in the library. I'm like, okay, this seems like an easy gig, right? Well, first off, one of my pet peeves about it is I'm very familiar with the architecture that they use in that school, and all of these schools are reinforced with like really, really thick concrete, which is very similar to the construction of the school that I worked at in Central LA when I was with LA Unified. Because this school actually was a charter school sharing a campus with another LA Unified high school. So it was kind of like, it was a tiny high school of 400 kids, but it was within a building, a complex that housed another 1,700 kids during the school year. So I was like, okay, this is weird. Well, anyway, I'm on the first floor, so I'm covered in concrete, so like my cell phone signal doesn't work for anything. I'm not going onto the Wi-Fi because they track you because it's on LA. I'm like, okay, fine. What am I going to do about this, right? I had to call IT a few times because the technology's locked down so hard that you need passwords for damn near everything. So IT comes in, and I'm like, okay, please like figure this out because my substitute teaching laptop that they gave me wasn't even charged. I had an administrator come in, and I was talking to her, and I said, hey, so these kids are supposed to be doing this thing on Google Classroom. It's a survey, and the survey doesn't seem to be showing up on Google Classroom. I had several students come up to me, and they showed me their screen. They're like, Miss, I don't see the survey. And I'm like, okay, this is really weird. So it turns out that they never turned the survey on. That's typical. And then I said, okay, well, I'm also like to know, like, what's going on with the movie deal? Like, where are the kids going and all that stuff. Turns out that the original plan of sticking the kids in the library or the multi-purpose room, depending on what the thing was, fell through. And they were like, well, that's not going to work. So we're going to have you guys watch the movie in your classroom. I said, that's great. The hard part was they needed to get me a laptop that connected to the internet so that I could get onto Netflix and go get it. Now here's the fun part. They said, okay, the kids are going to be watching Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse today. I said, okay, that's really cool. Here's the thing. No one had a Netflix account that they would log me into, so I'm thinking in my head, great, do I really have to pull this one out of my hat? And I proceed to log into my ex-boyfriend's account using one of the MacBooks in the room. And of course, AirPlay, wireless AirPlay to the Apple TV that's in the room is choppy. So then I had to call IT again to have them come in and give me the proper adapters so that I could just directly plug into the projector, and I finally get that working. Anyway, it's like the 20-minute delay, something ridiculous. And I finally get it to work. So basically, a janky computer situation plus my ex-boyfriend's Netflix account, I was able to get the kids to watch Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse. There were 2 sessions that are split during the day. So at the end of toward the end of the first session, we still had way too much time to kill. So then I turned on an episode of Carmen Sandiego on Netflix, which was really funny because considering how young these students are, they had no idea who Carmen Sandiego was. So for the kids who decided to listen, I told them about this Carmen Sandiego series, and they really didn't wake up until I mentioned Gina Rodriguez. So I'm going, okay, I understand that whole, selective filtering of and overall apathy, but man, I'll tell you, I totally have forgotten about it, especially after, having been away from working in inner city schools for so long. I mean, Hawthorne has it sometimes, but man, I'll tell you, the apathy is real. Which I'm like, I'd like to go to those kids and go, by the way, you guys have 3 more years to go if you make it. Just no. But anyway, that was a really quick random substitute teaching gig that I ended up with, and it was pretty interesting. Had to do quite a bit of cleaning this weekend. Mentioned last week this last Monday was Amazon Prime Day, and I know that's always a sticky subject because, the labor rules and things that, inhumane conditions, and everybody, who they're protesting stuff about overworking, crowded hours, violating work laws, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Which, Walmart does the same thing, but everybody still shops there anyway. I'm not going to go into that discussion. But anyway, I ended up pretty much using Prime Day to purchase a bunch of cleaning supplies. I could go into this further, but I would end up just kind of revealing the current state of my living situation, and I really don't want to do that right now. But I will say that it is nice when you get help from friends, when you have to outsource the help that you need to make sure that your living area is hospitable, you would hope that you would get the help from the people who live there, but you don't. And so sometimes you just got to take matters in your own hands for your own sanity. And I'll tell you, it was very satisfying to finally go in and just take care of that. Very little at a time, a lot of stuff getting thrown out as usual. Just all that. It's satisfying to clean, but I'll tell you, it takes a bunch of hours. I will say that, going into today, I'm running on about 3.25 hours of sleep. I had to set like 2 separate alarms just so that, the separate sounds would wake me up and everything like that. But with that being said, since my rats are nocturnal, and I'll put this out there too, I will say that I have some really good news about the rats. So, as you know, I have my adult boys and adult girls. So my hairless boys are doing fine. The regular girls on the bottom floor are doing great. But let's go back to the babies, the little baby rats. Well, so as I mentioned about last week, is that it's been a very long week for these guys. They're getting used to a new surrounding. They're growing up, and I had to really get them acclimated to, my hand equals good. Please don't be bitey. And as I mentioned last week, 2 of the rats did take a few jabs at my left index finger, which honestly is much better now. It wasn't really bad in the first place, but it did hurt for a little bit because they do have little teeth. And the good news is now I've got them to the point where I can reach my hand in there and they do not lunge and bite me. I was actually able to pet a few of them today. And just to briefly touch them and to just kind of ruffle their fur a little bit. And they did not retaliate or anything like that. They were actually more curious. They're still a little timid. They still run into the little home, but they're getting better about not immediately running away from me when I open the cage. So I am making some major progress when it comes to taming these little girls. I'm going to continue working on it this week and bribing them with food and making sure that everybody's happy. But it looks like it's a step in the right direction. Eventually I'll get them to where I'll have them on my lap and I'll start, playing with them some more and petting them. Once I pull them out of the cage, they don't go nuts in terms of trying to bite or anything like that. They're not retaliating. So I think I'm making some really good progress right now with the rats. And I'm hoping to get them ready, to be ready to adopt very soon. I would say I'd say at least another 3 weeks at that. And I should get them to a point where they can be at least handleable. That's the biggest thing. So I'm really glad for that. Yeah. And then, Saturday was interesting. Had a spent all day helping with a christening. So, my friend's third kid finally was ready for baptism, and proud to say that she was one of the few babies who didn't cry during the ceremony. It was over at St. Philomena, and if you're familiar with St. Philomena, they have this huge font at the front of the church as you walk in, and that's where all of the babies get baptized, and everyone gets, that's where you can dip your hand for the holy water and all that stuff, so they don't have the little cups of holy water all over the church like they used to in the older churches. It's just a big giant font. It's like almost a pool, really. Yes, you can dunk in it. It's really huge. And that was fun. Ended up going to the house early in the morning and helping with some last minute crafts. I will say this, there are alternatives to purchasing those personalized ribbons that you do for like weddings and christenings and stuff like that, where the names are on there and everything. I was very disappointed having to go through two Amazon vendors that used Amazon as their platform, and one of them we ordered these ribbons back in the beginning of July, and they claimed to be delivered on July 6th. It turned out they delivered them to Maryland, which made absolutely no sense. So we didn't figure that out until it was too late, and then ordered another set of ribbons last minute for them to arrive on the 19th. Of course, the ceremony was on the 20th, and they didn't show up until after our party was over on the 20th, and they wouldn't give a refund even though the stuff came too late, despite the fact that they had guaranteed it for the 19th. So I'm very disappointed in that. But with that being said, it involved the remedy involved a very last minute. I had to jump on my motorcycle on Friday the 19th, get to Michael's about 15 minutes before they closed to go pick up cardstock and decorative hole punches. The kind of hole punches that if you put it in paper, it'll make. Well, it was two sizes. One of the holes was an inch and a quarter, or inch and a half in diameter, and the second hole punch created circles that were an inch. And I ended up making little markers, like name markers with the kid's name and the date of the christening, like from scratch. I had to do DIY, and it actually ended up turning out better, and I'm really glad for it. But I'll have to say, they kind of throw me back to cams. It's like, oh my gosh, I have to come up with some sort of emergency solution to everything. It was a very tiring day. I think by the time I got back from the party, I went back, I was at my friend's house, and I just passed out on the couch for a good hour and a half. I'll tell you, when you're getting to that age where you're at a party and you're having way too much fun, you end up passing out due to exhaustion, not by the fact that you drank anything. That's when you're getting up there in age. Oh well, but it was a lot of fun. Ended up just kind of loitering around and then swinging by my boxing gym for the last 4 rounds of the Manny Pacquiao fight, which he won in split decision. I kind of amused because whenever you're reading any of the sports articles about Manny Pacquiao, who has now become the oldest welterweight champion in boxing history, and which is pretty crazy considering that he's 40. And I think he's just giving hope to all the rest of us who think that our lives are over at 40. Nah, he just went and just picked up his ninth championship belt. Sure, okay, fine. But the articles always find a way to mention that he's a senator in a political office in the Philippines, and it's funny. It's when you have someone like that who just like, oh yeah, what's your day job? I was like, I'm a politician. What do you do at night? Oh, I punch people in the face and maybe the body, and in other places too, in front of a bunch of people and in front of the TV. Yeah, and granted that some of the stuff he said has been a bit controversial. You can't really, doubt that, he's a very good fighter, so it's fun to watch that. And beating a person, 10 years his junior is pretty impressive, especially because, he started to swing back. Pacquiao had him all the way, in the first 4 rounds, even knocked him out, over, it's Thurman gave him a good run for his money, and the fact it was split decision, okay, that's impressive. So that was pretty much Saturday, and then Sunday was just involving a bunch of emergency vehicles. I don't know what this was about. Now, I've got a lot of stuff going on the weekend, and I always like to share some stories, especially because I'm just kind of popping around and doing all this random stuff. But yeah, Sunday was cool. So one of my friends came back and from a very quick trip in Hawaii, and her birthday was last week. And so it was me, her, another friend, and actually another friend too. And we all just went and went to eat Italian, because you can't go wrong with that, and had some food. and shopped and got a bunch of Japanese food at the grocery store and all that stuff. And, got back to my house, and there are emergency vehicles. But before I even do that, we're heading back to my house during one route, and one of the intersections was closed due to another accident at the same intersection that I was with my friend. Had seen the same an accident on the same intersection on Friday night. So it seems like Artesia and Hawthorne seems to be like a hot spot for people hitting each other, which is not cool. And and so we get back to my place, and there's a paramedic and 2 sheriff's deputy cars right in front of the driveway of my house. I'm very confused by this. And I'm like, okay, usually if you have police or sheriff's deputies and a paramedic, there's a high chance that there's something related to domestic violence or some sort of disturbance. So we're like, okay, well, looks like we're not going to be able to go into the house. So we divert back 2 blocks and go and have some ice cream at Rolling Zone on Hawthorne and Manhattan Beach Boulevard. And that's cool. So we just kind of chilled, had some ice cream. And then by the time we got back, the sheriff's units were still there, but at least we could get into our driveway. And then, a lot of emergency vehicles. It was really random. Ended up knocking out for about 2 hours, and then tackled the entire kitchen and a barbecue grill that I just taken from a neighbor who gave it to me because they're moving. So that was interesting. Like I said, it's really nice when you get help from your friends. And had to deep clean all of that because, like I said, it never will get touched if I don't do anything. And I didn't go to sleep until about I'd say close to 2 a.m. It was painful but yet cathartic, and sometimes you just need to just go and say, I gotta nuke this place. And there's a part of me that wonders if I should just start a donation fund. Yes, please contribute to my cleaning supplies. It seems like that's all I'm going to be doing in perpetuity for the next who knows what, until I finally can get a place of my own that I don't have to deal with, all of the bureaucracy that's involved with trying to cohabitate with someone that is anyway. Right. So that was fun, and now I'm here on the 405. As I keep talking here, I'm finally passing Howard Hughes. Actually, now I'm in front of Howard Hughes, so that puts me at about I still got probably about 40 minutes left of driving here in a straight line on a road that leads to somewhere where you sit here and you feel like you're going nowhere. That's what's up. So Monday, it's fun. I'm working all this week. I'm thinking of making some cookies. I'll post it online if you are interested in helping out as soon as I can get this kitchen really clean and just making sure that everything is put away. There's been a lot of just stuff. You probably understand, especially if you're one of those people that really just tries to do everything at home. I'm getting better at that. I've just been running around so much, it's starting to get a little tiring. So with that being said, be good. I'm going to try to be as well. And it's another day in LA. It's just another day in this hood. Please stay safe out there. I don't want to hear about you on the news for all the wrong reasons. I don't want to hear about it on Facebook for all the wrong reasons. It's my boss saw the post I placed about my former student, and it's hard when we're all in education, and there's a lot of kids' lives that we impact, and whenever something happens to them, no matter what our relationship was with them, the fact that at one point, their lives were in our hands, and they were under our care at one point, they're attached to you forever. There's just no way to really explain that connection, even if it's not one of closeness. It's still one of, at one point, you protected them because they were your kids. It just sucks. So, I'll have to think about this one for a while. It just makes it hard. The graduating class of 2009 at my high school is planning that reunion, and I'm really working on making sure I go. If anything, at least to see how many of them have grown. Even though I do see a lot of them online, it is nice to see, them in the flesh, because one of my personal admissions to this was when on the graduation ceremony back in June of 2009, I actually had to miss it on purpose. And the main reason why I had to was I was scheduled to do a very, I would consider for my production company, a very high profile videography assignment that happened on the exact same day as the graduation, and I had no choice but to do it. Otherwise, I wouldn't have been able to pay my rent that day. And as much as it still makes me feel bad that I wasn't able to go to the graduation of my first class that I ever had as a professional teacher, I know that sometimes you have to take care of yourself so that you can continue to take care of other people when you're ready again. And I think about, we fast forward to 10 years later, and in some capacity I am still teaching. I may not have my own permanent classroom, but I still roam this earth, and I make sure that, kids at least learn one thing from me every day and go home at least, in one piece if I can help it. So, yeah, please stay safe out there. You realize quickly that there's too much shit's going on, and, you don't know what's going to go, and just, you got to do the best you can and live the best you can. I'm getting better at listening to my own advice. And, I think sometime around 10 or 11, I think I'm going to go get a coffee at this point. So, yeah. All right. Hi, Culver City. How are you doing? If you'd like to know, that's my current state of affairs right now. I'm not one of the motorcycles. That's kind of the depressing part. But this will be me for at least another 35-40 minutes. So, yeah. Peace out. Be good. Just be good. I'll talk to y'all later.